not in the condition it is today.
Yeah, I'm
So
back
it is
already.
our responsibility to protecting our planet and to look after Mother Earth. The destruction of the Murray-Darling, the Barker now we call it, has devastated our communities. People, when we've got a sick river, we've got a sick community. If we've got a dead river, we've got a dead community. My people, First Nation people, have been on the rivers for a long, long time. 40% of First Nation people lives along the Murray-Darling and the waterways. Why are my people are suffering? Why are they drinking water that's unacceptable? Why the clearing of the land has affected my people? My people are now dying and becoming sick. All because of the greed. All because of the greed and the taking of our waters. My old people have said no one owns the water. The water is there to be shared. The government and its corporate greed and capitalism has killed this country. I've got a message to our leaders and our politicians. I got no faith in politicians, but I believe it's here. You, standing out there in the audience, we have the answer. The answer's here with us. We are going to build a grassroots movement that no one's going to stop. It is our turn. It is our time. People, we're going to now rise. We're going to fight for those things that affect our lives. We're going to do it as united, as non-Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples together. You are now on a journey. We are now on a journey. That journey is not about any particular person or any particular group. The journey is all of us. We want to send the message to the government that this government is now destroying our lives, our communities, and are not listening for the First Nations people. We are now going to send the voice. We're going to be the voice for those that have been voiceless for so many years. I will stand in the gap. You will stand in the gap. You will stand up for our Mother Earth. That's thousands of years. Brothers and sisters, my people are out there, like I said, are drinking water that's unacceptable. We need filters on those taps for our communities. We need water tanks to put on every household in those communities. We need the water back in our rivers. Put water back in the rivers.
They should be standing with
The dams are controlled by who? Who's controlling our waters? The corrupt government. Overseas companies, the cotton farmers, the big irrigators that have pumped our waters, rivers dry. No more.
And protest foreign ownership.
We will say no more. We are now going to stop it. We have the answers. We're going to put pressure on this government. Now they need to listen to us. So let's keep up the fight. We've got to keep fighting. I will keep fighting for my First Nations people. Our First Nation people don't want to leave their lands that they have lived for thousands of years. I believe that this government wants to close down those communities. 90 communities that this government wants to shut down. But it's not going to happen in my time. It's not going to happen in your time. Because we are here and we're going to do something about it. So power to the people. We will unite now. It is our time. It is time.
Thank you to Bruce Shillingsworth. Just before we start the rally, I wanted to let you know about 2 more events that you can get involved with if you'd like to continue this fight after today. Not only do we have activities right here up until Thursday, you can also get involved in the National Day of Action in Glebe Park on Saturday the 22nd of February. Check that out on Facebook. And there's also a Festival for Climate Action sounding the alarm on the 29th of February, so please be sure to check those 2 events out. All right, everybody, it is my very great pleasure to welcome your MC for today, Dr. Carl.
Thank you, Dr. Lucy. I'm your MC for the next hour and a half. We're here at a demonstration, a rally, a protest of some sort. There have been a whole bunch of these over the years. There's been some against nuclear weapons, and they led to the number of nuclear weapons on the planet dropping down from 60,000 to 4,000, which is still too high, but it's a good step. We've had demonstrations in the past against apartheid, and apartheid in South Africa stopped. We've had demonstrations for Indigenous people in Australia being allowed to be counted on the census and being allowed to vote, and that happened as a result. We've had demonstrations against the unjust Vietnam War, and we pulled out of the Vietnam War. We've had a couple of sets of demonstrations and rallies and protests for climate action. In the old days, it was for acid rain, and we fixed that, and also for the ozone hole, and we fixed that. We've had one for marriage people, and now they're allowed to do that. And now we've got one here today for climate change. I think that as we look around, we can think that, yes, we are on the right side of history because the science tells us so. So let's start the show going. We're here for an hour and a half, and let me introduce our first speaker, who is Sophie Taylor-Price. She's a conservation activist, and she's continuing her grandfather's legacy, and she'll tell you who he was. You work it out. One of his last wishes was that we continue on climate action, and 30 years ago, her grandfather, opened the CSIRO Climate Research Centre 30 years ago, and she's carrying on the tradition. Big hand for Sophie. Come on down, Sophie Taylor-Price. You rock.
What the hell is that animal thing?
I would also like to acknowledge the traditional owners and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. We meet on stolen land where sovereignty was never ceded. I no longer refer to climate change. Instead, I speak of our changing climate. For the topic at hand is no longer a scientific theory or an abstract challenge of the future for others to deal with. It is here, it is now, it is us. Our climate is changing, and it's our collective problem to solve. If a price was to be paid in order to wake us up to the urgency of action, let us consider it paid. It has been paid in our homes, in our safety, our livelihoods, our village streets, and our beautiful wildlife. Been paid in the lives of our citizens.
Yeah.
We have been naive, we have been petulant, we have been indifferent. We have bullied and mocked those who stand up for what is right, or worse, we have simply watched. I say no more. My grandfather was Bob Hawke. My grandfather was relentlessly dogged in his advocacy for climate action. In his last months, there was a deep sadness in his heart as he thought we were failing. If he were here these past months, he would have wept. He would have wept for the failure of our nation, and he would have wept for his brothers and sisters who have lost their lives and lost their homes. This weekend past, I went to Kangaroo Valley to see it for myself. I saw that this was not like any other fire. There was nothing but dust and ash and charcoal. There were no bees, there were no ants, There were no birds. There was no sound. Just destruction. I wept as he would have done, feeling that it may never recover. And it may never be the same again. We as a nation have been changed by this. 2020 is the year that the tide must turn.
Turn them on a bloody road.
And I have so much hope. But we're optimistic, as my grandfather once was. Many people here today are wizened climate warriors who have fought a long and thankless battle. Let us give them hope. Let us not be silent. Let us turn up in our numbers. Let us rage in our classrooms, our boardrooms, and our streets. Let us be a voice of change. It is time. It's time to acknowledge that we are fundamentally failing to respond to the crisis at hand. It's time to declare a climate emergency. The runway that we have left to avert further disaster is quickly running out, but redemption is possible. We need to show leadership. We need to rapidly transition to a lower carbon future. We have all witnessed that there is a clear and present danger, and the science does tell us that this is not going away and it will get worse. If we don't take immediate action, more bush will burn, more wildlife will perish, more homes will be destroyed. Tourism will falter and the economy of yesteryear will flounder. More people will die. The cost of inaction is beyond our financial and our moral means. The people in the building behind me have the power to break the status quo. If we look beyond party lines, action is possible. I call on all members to support the declaration of a climate emergency so that we as a nation can respond to the crisis at hand with the urgency our burning land deserves.
Oh, sorry, I accidentally deleted someone's message then. Oh yeah.
Hello, now I'm talking louder into the microphone. Can you hear me down the back? Can I just have a little wave if you can hear me down the back? Okay, good. I'm pumping it up. Right, bit of an amateur mistake, don't you think, not to talk loud enough into a microphone? But there's that old saying that they teach you in AV school. It ain't a miracle, it's a microphone. So we're heading down a pathway, and I'm here to talk about the science. Now, let's just talk about the Indigenous stuff for a second and the science behind it. It was long thought, but wrongly, that Indigenous knowledge in anywhere in the world could not be transmitted accurately by mouth for more than a couple of 100 years. And this was the belief until about 10 years ago, 15 years ago among the academics, until we started to look at the Indigenous people of Australia and what they said to each other as the oceans began to rise. So we've had these oceans going up and down as the ice ages come and go. And the peak of the ice age was about 18,000 years ago, 18, and the ocean levels were 125 metres down all around Australia. And then we went looking, and in the Indigenous stories and legends, we found stories about the water rising from 18,000 years ago to 10,000 years ago. Places that were around Australia such as Cairns, Melville Island, Rottnest Island, Spencer Gulf and Port Phillip. And when we go back and look at the underground or the underwater records, what they say, we can see the little islands there, it all fits in with their legends. So this is the background to me introducing Uncle Kevin Buzzacott. He's an Arabunda elder. He's a South Australian campaigner for land rights and for water rights. Hey, South Australia is the driest state in the driest inhabited continent on Earth. And he's also against uranium mining. Big intro now for Uncle Kevin, who's going to talk about government and other stuff. Come on down, Uncle Kevin. Sure.
Try it out. Hey, okay. How do I sound? Oh, come on. I'll try not to be long. Generally, I can talk for 3 days straight, but I'm told I only got a couple of minutes. These mob there across the road here, we're here for climate change. I see on the media and all these mobbers saying this is a natural disaster, all the things that have been happening here. It is not a natural disaster. It's been man-made by these people at the back here. They should be crime, a war crime. They should be punished for the war crime for doing what they did to us. They got no idea of running this whole country.
Right, they do not.
They ain't the bosses. They got no authority of this place. I want them gone. We're taken over. We've managed this country for 40,000 years plus. We didn't have guns, policemen, all these bombs and stuff. We didn't do this, all these damage to the whole earth like these mobs did. We lived, we know, we got the recipe for this whole place. And we know the way home.
Yeah.
So these mobs here, we've told them before, they come down and make peace. Come and make peace, otherwise we can't help you. Come down to the embassy, the Aboriginal embassy. It's the boys, I say it's the government of here, not them. It's the real government. We are the original people. We're not the First Nation or the Second Nation. We are the original people of this whole country. And we love it. We love it. And we don't like what these fellas been doing to it. And all our animals, our plants, our trees, are dying, being murdered and whatnot by these people, simply because they never asked us where they could live or where they could set up. And they've got a lot to answer for. I go right back to the first time they put foot here. All the massacre sites, sacred sites, all of that. These fellas don't even know anything about it. They cannot beat the whole spirit of the country. And no one can beat the truth. The lies and bullshit they run on over there is over, finished. No more, they are the government. This is one of our passports. Mob over here want to come down and get one of these, come down and make peace. We're giving them offering to come down and make peace, otherwise we can't help them, and we might have to move them on. The good people can stay. The baddies need to go, or come down, we'll rehabilitate them, or send them back in. We're doing a lot of restructuring down at the Aboriginal Tent Embassy headquarters, our headquarters, If some of you lot a bit bored want to come down and help us, you feel free. And we've got a lot of up and coming events coming up. So we'll let you know about it. Stay tuned. And I've got the other group here gonna take over because I don't want to take up too much of their time. But thanks for listening to me. And come down and make peace.
But nothing to do with climate change.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Diane Coe. I'm second generation to the Aboriginal 10 Embassy. My thing for today is to talk about healing the land. Currently we are planting trees down at the embassy to show the government that it doesn't matter what colour you ask, colour is only skin deep and we all bleed red. So I'd like to invite as many as we can get down there to show the government that we all stand here today in solidarity. Thank you.
I'd like to thank you all for being here today, for standing up for our country that we did not sell. It is being usurped from us, from the government behind us, without our consent. Now, what they are trying to do is recognise Aboriginal people in the Constitution, to usurp our sovereignty and to allow them the process of reconciliation, which will usurp our sovereignty and give these guys control. And they have done so much damage to our country, to our lands, to our waters, to our people, and to all vulnerable people of all cultures in Australia. We cannot endorse them. The Constitution is not fit to be endorsed. And so we ask all of you here to be our message sticks today from the 10 Embassy and spread the word to vote no to constitutional change if it comes to a referendum. We can only reach our Aboriginal networks so far because we are underfunded and we have no funding whatsoever. So we need you to take it up for our people, which takes it up for our land, to vote no to constitutional change. Thank you. Danny's just going to say a couple of words from his country and how the Constitution is impacting on his country.
All right, I'm from Kenya. Some of that say where that is. Well, that's at Broke Mill. And we've been having problems with our river, and every time I come to these sort of events, to Canberra, to Sydney and all that, every time I cross it, I look down on the river and I feel angry and sad. Yeah. Drought. I don't think it's just drought. It's man-made drought as well. You know, you mess with nature, well, it's going to bite you back too. Exactly. And to us, it's just genocide. You know, not just on black fellas, but on white fellas as well. And these fellas up here, they should be locked up and have the keys thrown away. Yeah. And this is why I'm here today, to show my support and to stand alongside our sisters and brothers here. To tell them no more. Get rid of the dams and allow our rivers to flow. Water is life. You know, and just like the Cree Nation, you know, we head into this thing, you know, like the Cree Nation proverb says, you know, when the last tree falls, the last fish is caught, the last river is poisoned. Only then you will realise that you cannot eat money. And that's the thing we are heading in. I've also been fighting alongside the Vote No campaign
It shouldn't be
for our more.
anything to do with climate change, though. So
I've been working
inflating
with the
issues.
Vote No,
Climate
the
change has got nothing to do
constitutional
with
team,
rivers.
for quite some time, for 7 years. It had opened my eyes up to corruption and the manipulation of our people in this country.
Like right now.
Some people just don't know how bad and corrupt this system is. They just don't know who they are dealing with. If the government can backstab their own kind, such as Rudd, Gillard and Abbott, Turnbull, etc., I'm pretty damn sure that they're not going to go think twice about us blackfellas. So I say no to the Constitution. And I denounce the Uluru Statement. I denounce those who are affiliated with it. You don't speak for me. I stand against recognition into the Constitution. My sovereignty is not for you to take in any forms or practices. Hands off. I don't consent. Always will be. Aboriginal land.
Every time you take money from the government, you consent.
Hello and back again. Now, hi, I'm Dr. Carl, I'm emceeing. I'm here to talk about the science.
I used to like Dr.
That's
Carl.
my role. Now, the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, you're going to love this segue, it's a beauty. The carbon dioxide in the atmosphere acts as a one-way valve and it traps the heat from the sun. How much heat each day does the sun trap over the whole of the planet? And the answer is 400,000 Hiroshima bombs worth of heat.
A one-way
400,000
That's a flat-out lie.
Hiroshima bombs worth of heat, or 4.5 Hiroshima bombs every second. Our next, you don't like the segue, spoke against nuclear weapons. She was a founder of ICAN, the international campaign to abolish nuclear war,
Indigenous the
nuclear
same
weapons.
way
Sue
the
Warren,
UN
come on
and
down,
such
Dr.
like
Sue,
are
a
using
retired
Greta.
GP, president of the Medical
You're not allowed to
Association for the
criticise
Prevention of
them, so
War,
put them
and
up
she's
the
here to talk
front
about
every
climate and
time.
conflict. Give her a big hand.
Thank you very much, Dr. Carl. It's a great honour to be here addressing you all, to be addressing a crowd of people who understand the peril our planet faces, who care about it, and who are taking action to turn things around. Thank you all for being here. And I want to mention and pay particular deep respect to the Aboriginal people of this country, whose ancestors have nurtured this land for thousands and thousands of years, and who have a lot to teach our country about caring for country. We grieve with them for everything our nation has lost over past weeks. I'm here as a health professional and a peace activist. Health and peace are two of the things that each of us seek for ourselves and for our communities, and they are two of the things that are already suffering from our climate crisis. I'm not going to talk in detail about the health impacts of climate change, but they are many and severe. I'm going to focus on war and peace and the links with climate. And again, there are many links. Armed conflict and preparing for it consumes vast quantities of fossil fuels. A report from Brown University in the United States says that the US Department of Defense is the largest institutional consumer of fossil fuels anywhere in the world, and it is a key contributor to climate change. In the so-called War on Terror from 2001, the US military has emitted 1.2 billion metric tons of greenhouse gases. Wars also demand vast budgets. Australia's fleet of F-35 fighter jets, so that we can attack other nations, cost $17 billion, plus additional unknown quantities to actually operate and maintain them. But in December last year, our Prime Minister committed just $11 million, less than 1,000th of the cost of the F-35 fighter jets, to increase our capacity to fight fires from the air.
State responsibility.
These priorities these are truly insane. Perhaps the most insidious aspect of wars on climate is that they prevent the very agreement and cooperation that is needed between nations, that's desperately needed to address our climate crisis. In addition, environmental degradation and climate disruption are huge risks for armed conflict. As resources dwindle, dry up, crops fail, then tensions rise. And we've seen this in the Darfur and Sudan, and in Syria and in other places. Dwindling water access looms as a risk of further wars in the Middle East and in South Asia. China, India, Pakistan, all nuclear armed, rely significantly on meltwater from the Himalayan glaciers, which are warming up. For all these reasons, XR Peace has emerged in the UK as an essential part of the XR movement, and it's emerging here in Australia. If you're interested, please check out the XR Peace Facebook page. I'm going to bring in another word here, the word security. The word used when our governments want us to go off and attack invade somewhere else, or when they want to boost the profits of the war profiteers.
Solutions or actions?
Right now, Australia has a naval ship heading for the waters off Iran. And we're told with straight faces that this is going to help keep us secure. Another lie and another perverted notion of where our security really lies. Meanwhile, our government is negligent on the two greatest threats to our security, which are climate change and nuclear weapons. And let's remember the 14,000 nuclear weapons that still exist. Just 2 weeks ago, on the 24th of January, the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists advanced the hands of their doomsday clock to the closest they have ever been to midnight, ever, since 1947 when the clock was begun. And that was in recognition of the twin perils of climate change and nuclear weapons. Our government has done its best to stymie global action on climate change and did its best to kill off the nuclear weapons ban treaty, which it still refuses to sign. To use Greta Thunberg's words, how dare they? How dare they talk to us about security as our country burns when they reject global cooperation? They kowtow to the world's biggest warmonger, and their notions of security are limited to security for the war profiteers and the big polluters. Let's look at an analogy from the world of medicine. If a patient in hospital was suffering from overload of a drug that was being prescribed, blood levels were too high, and if a doctor came around and kept pumping more of that drug into the patient, he or she would most likely end up in court and be deregistered so he or she could do no further harm. And yet where's the equivalent measure? Courts or at some mental health facility for a PM and his colleagues who encourage the pumping of carbon into our atmosphere at dangerous levels. People whose contempt for knowledge, whose arrogance and incompetence know no bounds. How much longer must we suffer under these people?
I need a big mirror.
And this is not a partisan call for a Labor government, Until Labor urgently declares the need to phase out fossil fuels, they are part of the problem as well. What each of us does now is extremely important. We must use our money, our time, our skills, every other resource we have to continue and strengthen this struggle. We must cut through the lies and the vested interests. We must demand genuine security for all people and work with the parliamentarians who are with us on this. And above all, we must persist despite all the setbacks. There are many of us who far outnumber the climate deniers. And even as we grieve for what we have lost as a nation, we must build our solidarity and take strength from one another. Thank you.
Just have a look at this outfit and stuff. None of that material is natural materials that dies.
Hi, g'day again. Now I'm going to hit you with a little tiny bit of science, and this one goes back to the Assyrians, whose calendar is the oldest in the world. It started 4,700 years ago, and they also worked on geometry, and the geometry lesson is this: if the people who are standing can sit down, then the people behind you can see you better. I know, it's a bad segue, sorry. It just makes it easy for everybody to see. Now, talking on a non-science, in 1967, Chairman Mao of China said, and this is a bad thing but true, he said political power grows out of the barrel of a gun. And that is true, but it's terrible because it leads to dead people and bad things. But I prefer this version here where we've got a Parliament House there and a Parliament House there. Political power grows out of the people and the politics. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce some people who can change things, who can inspire you guys to become the new generation of politicians. So firstly, I'll bring to the stage the two of them together. Uncle Adam, now I've got to get the pronunciation right, Burraguba, leader and spokesperson for the Wangan and Jangalingu Council, and he's on stage also with Bob Brown, ex-Federal Senator and ex-leader of the Parliamentary Greens. Come on down, guys.
My name's Adrian Burraguba. I'm the leader and spokesperson for the Wangan Jangalingu Family Council. We've held Adani up for the past 7 years. We took him to 5 federal court cases, yet the government still manufactured a fake Ilyua and then went around spruiking to people like Seaman and people like that and other international companies that they have the will of the traditional owners, but they don't, because it's all fake. It's a fraudulent Ilyua, and we all know this because we've fought against this Ilyua from day one. And just as Matt Canavan was going around spruiking that the traditional owners wanted it, well, look where Matt Canavan is today. We want to get rid of him. Mr. Resource Minister for nothing. And we'd like to say this, we'd like to thank the organisers and all the traditional owners and people who's from this land here, and acknowledge their law and their custom and their culture first in time and best at law. And we acknowledge that wherever we go, all the traditional owners and First Nations people, because we've been denied our rights and our voice in this climate change proposal. And this is the situation that we're in. We've been fighting against extractive industries since day one. And the Wangan Jangalingu Family Council, we stand strong and we stand proud, and we're going to stop that mine. We're going to stop Adani's mine. We're going to stop Gina Reinhardt. We're going to stop the Galilee Basin from being opened up, and we're going to do it with your help, and you're going to stand with us and be proud to stop Adani.
And stop Adani we will. It's just a matter of when it becomes a frozen asset, a part of history, a part of humanity's wrong direction, under what earlier speakers have said is this culture of grabbing everything, of greed, of destruction on this one beautiful little speck in the universe, this one little planet, which so far as we know has life and love and laughter and opportunity and creativity and happiness and dreams for the future, as well as respect for the past. But those things have been put on the altar of profiteering by billionaires who fund the spineless people leading the big parties. The elbow ScoMo, pro-coal mine, pro-gas fracking, pro-oil drilling in the Great Barrier Reef, pro-logging of forests people who are making this world an unlivable place, not just for us, but for our millions of fellow species who have a right to live on into the future of this beautiful biosphere.
Where's your wind farm,
So
Bob?
I add to the cause.
So I was wondering if I couldn't remember if it was a wind or a solar farm. Thank you.
For this planet, at every election, at every level, to fund those who are standing at the front line, to go to your politician because they're your representative and demand they stand for the planet rather than for coal, fossil fuels, forest destruction, and let the devil take the hindmost with our children, our grandchildren and our fellow creatures. And for all of us who are gathered in front of this temple of democracy, which has been corrupted by the business person's tables, feeding those inside who think they're going to profit from taking the money and letting down the people, our nation, our planet, our future, and life, which so far as we know is in our hands. We are the custodians. We have taken that role. We've usurped it from nature, and it is now our responsibility. This whole world is in our hands, and we're going to take it back from these monsters of mammon, these money greed takers, these Clive Palmer fed, as Adam said earlier, climate criminals on the hill. And it was James Hansen from NASA, perhaps the world's leading scientist on ringing the bell on climate change, who said anybody who authorises or aids and abet a new coal mine being opened and that coal being taken to the ports and exported is a criminal and a criminal behaviour. When you take the laws of nature, which are the overriding laws which give us life on this planet. So beyond gathering together, holding up our banners, stopping in front of our parliamentarians, writing to the newspapers this: if you see a coal truck, sit in front of it. If you see a chainsaw going into the Tarkine wilderness, as it was this morning, 5 people arrested, go to the Tarkine and stand in front of that chainsaw, even if they threaten you with 4 years in jail. I'm going, will you come with me? And if you see the gas brackets,
the coal industry himself, he was their
rock the
biggest
gate,
supporter years ago.
and then sit in front of it. They need to be stopped.
Stop the wind farm.
They need to be stopped by us with peace, as Sue said, because that is the powerful option that we have in our society against their guns, their tanks, their chainsaws. And if we see an oil well, Equinor, who won't drill for oil in Norway,
Stop them using the
in their special places, coming into the Great Australian Bight, it is our job to get in their way and stop that happening. And what about the traditional owners that call for the heart for our rivers? This ageless relationship with our forests. Don't cut the trees. The song from Johnny Went. This relationship with our fellow creatures and respect, that is ours to follow, to take back, to honour and to bring power to. So when it comes to Adani and their plan to go ahead and export that oil, that coal, it is our job to go there and get in their way, to stop them with ourselves. That costs money, that costs time, but this for the planet. We are talking about the future of the planet here. We are talking about what H.G. Thoreau wrote in 40, that when the law is wrong, civil disobedience is right. And whenever has the law been wronger than in the destruction of this planet on the altar of greed and money? So ladies and gentlemen, let's celebrate the planet. It is beautiful to hear the songs. It is our right to dance. It is our right to picnic. It is our right to just enjoy the companionship of wonderful people, of wonderful creatures on this planet. We must have that celebration as we go into defence of this planet. Get in their way, stop them, hurl them out until we get back in this rational human intelligence which tells us we must live with this planet instead of off it. So brave hearts, let's go for planet Earth here in Australia. Let's go. Let's stop the fossil fuels and save the forest. Let's go, ladies and gentlemen.
from a scientific point of view, if a person says, I accept that climate change is real and caused by us putting out carbon dioxide, and they also say, I support a new way of putting carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, there is a logical disconnect. Something does not
carbon
compute.
dioxide has anything to do with climate
Now let's just shift
change.
into animals.
Jam it up your ass, Dr.
In the
Carl.
oceans, which are becoming more acidic, there's a creature called a pteropod, P-T-E-R-O-P-O-D. It's about this big. And it's got a shell. And because the oceans have gone, due to the carbon dioxide dissolving in them, from pH 8.2 to 8.1, it's still alkaline, but it's just a little bit more acid. You got 30% more hydrogen ions. These creatures, the pteropods, can't make their own shell, and quite rightly used. Whoa! I bumped a microphone. What an amateur! And these pteropods can't make their own shell, and you think, well, what the heck? I've never heard of a pteropod. The pteropods in the Arctic and the Antarctic account for 1 in every 8 carbonate molecules in the entire biosphere, and they're 60% of the food of the juvenile salmon, and we're wiping them out. You didn't know about it. But to know more about animals, let me introduce, wasn't that a nice segue, Dr. Gundi Rhodes, a New South Wales vet and farmer, vet for climate change, and she's does small and large animals up in Inverell, and she's talking about the effects of heat and drought and climate change on all sorts of livestock and wildlife. Big hand for Dr. Gundi.
Recycled papier-mâché glue, but no, they use a plastic glue.
Hi, I'm just a veterinarian, but I'm here as a voice for the animals. Let me tell you what it looked like in the last 2 years in my town where I live as a veterinarian, where we had the drought. That was before the fires. There is not
exacerbated by
any blade of grass left in the paddocks. The animals have all been sold. Livestock is bare. The koalas are dying because the trees are dead and there is no moisture in them anymore. I would get these koalas into my clinic and I cannot save them anymore because they are in kidney failure already. I cannot even see them because they just died out in the bush. And have you ever sat down a tree with a koala? That is a wild animal that should not be there with you, that comes down the tree and holds your hand, and you give it a pot of water and it just drinks and drinks and drinks. And what do we say? I can only say, mate, I am so sorry that we have done this to you. There is no sheep, there is no cow in my district anymore. The farmers are going broke, talking about good for the economy. I can tell you it's not. Our businesses are dying, but the wildlife is what gets me. There is ewes that give birth to lambs, and they are just walking away. The farmers come to me and in my clinic and say, Gundi, we have never seen this before, ever. Bullshit. The cows get stuck in the half or in the nearly empty dams. Then they have to be shot. The poor farmers. I can show you, they are in tears. Bulls are going infertile. The mares will not get pregnant. There is not any food growing in my whole district anymore. And that is climate change. And that is expensive. And that is sad. These people are making me really angry. That was just complete not a bullshit she just said. And I wake up and I see the smoke outside and think, this is not true. We cannot have done it. But we have done it. We as people have created that, and I feel so sorry.
So
I look at all the animals and I can just apologize. And you know that's not enough. As humans, we have to change our ways. And then came the
I'd like to ask Bob Brown why he objected. He's objecting to the coal mine, but he stopped that wind farm.
The snakes and the frogs and the insects.
You get what I'm saying?
And that
because it's got to go somewhere. It's going to do ecological damage wherever it goes. Doesn't matter if it's the desert or the mountains or the.
And the firefighters.
And same with that. I actually know people that work in the lithium mine, so I know where the limitations on that actually. But yeah, it makes no sense. Same with that Zali Stegel. And if
so we have to be responsible,
to get it put in a wind
and we have to be intelligent, and we have to be smart. As a scientist, I can tell you we cannot live without nature. We need nature to be part of us. And if nature gets cranky, as we have seen, it's not very pretty. So we have the solutions. There's hundreds of solutions, from regenerative agriculture to finding alternatives to plastic,
to renewable energy. We are so smart as people. The solutions are there. So why don't we? And why don't the politicians up on that hill do it? This is a question of intelligence, and it's a question of not being stupid and short-sighted. And we as people are smart. We'll find a way. If a doctor tells you you're dying of cancer, change, you should change. Listen to the science. So, nature is suffering. What gives me hope is that there is 8 billion nearly of us, 8 billion people that want to find a purpose. Let that be our purpose. Let us save this planet for us and for all the animals, and that they never die again.
I would like him to ask the question I asked that other guy, but it's not,
fire.
he's an Indigenous dude, by the way.
Let
You
that
probably
be
didn't
our
see him on
fire.
camera. And he agreed that it's, you know.
We've had a few climate emergencies before. We had the ozone hole, and in each case we fixed them. The dialogue was not taken over by a massive, well-funded disinformation budget. So if you see people who are genuinely confused about climate change, it's not their fault. They've
for the
been lied to
manufacture
by
of
a
the
very
materials for
well-funded
solar
campaign for a
panels
long
for
time.
sulfur
But we
dioxide.
did win with acid rain. That's the sulfur in the coal being burnt and turning into sulfuric acid, and also oxides of nitrogen. And so thousands of kilometres away from the smokestacks, fish were dying in ponds in Scandinavia that were too acid.
Exactly.
And with the ozone hole, we discovered what was going on, and then in each case, acid rain and the ozone hole, we talked to the politicians, and the politicians fixed it. So let me introduce to you an ex-politician, John Hewson, who's been talking about climate change for decades. Ex-leader of the Liberal Party in opposition, talking about the climate emergency. Big hand for John Hewson.
Good afternoon. Pleasure to be here. It's an honour to be here, in fact. Let me begin by paying my respects to the traditional owners of the land on which we meet, and to the elders past, present and emerging. And then let me make a personal comment. That is important.
Keeps running away.
Acknowledged country, but it's not enough. We should be giving full recognition to our Indigenous heritage in our Constitution,
Sorry, mate. I'm
and
really sorry.
seriously address Aboriginal disadvantage. Welcome to the bubble. Morrison likes to talk about Parliament as a bubble. Well, the bubble is actually driven by political leaders who spend most of their time scoring points on each other, by shifting blame to the other side, in the hope of winning some short-term political advantage either to themselves or to their party. Today, for example, we have a day committed in the Parliament to condolence motions for those who've been disadvantaged by the, particularly by the bushfires, also the drought, those who've lost their lives, lost property, suffered real hardship. Yet at the same time, the National Party in this country spends part of the day picking a new leader. Distracted, very self-absorbed, very inward-looking, very arrogant, all at the expense of what they should be doing, which is governing on behalf of all of us. I think it is a tragedy that we have let the climate issues drift as far as we have, simply because of short-term politics. I feel it particularly because I had a policy back in the early 90s, when I was leader,
I'm not pushy enough
to cut emissions by 20% by the year 2000 off a base. And I think if we've done that, and we've sustained that pressure, we'd be way ahead of our Paris commitments already. We'd have much lower energy prices, much lower electricity and gas prices. And of course, we would have seen, I think, the creation of hundreds of thousands of jobs and billions of dollars of investment and economic growth in the process of making that transition. So it is a tragedy that we've lost those opportunities. I am appalled when I see the debate today as it runs by this government. You know, when I was a student at university, my first textbook in statistics was a book called How to Lie with Statistics.
Never met me before.
Well, I observe that that's still alive and well in Parliament today. When I hear that we're only 1.3% of global emissions, and ignore the fact that we're probably the second largest exporter of fossil fuels, LNG and coal, which puts us in the top 5 or 6 emitters in the world, I think that's a better estimate of the magnitude of our task. And when I hear that we're going to achieve our Paris commitments, which are about half what they should have been, should have been 50 to 60% cut in emissions by the year of 2030, not 26 to 28%. But when I hear we're going to achieve that in a canter, right, because we're going to use credits that were generated under the Kyoto process, rather than address the issue, which is cutting emissions, I'm absolutely staggered. To me, that's very much like a kid who, in their year 6, at the end of their primary school, gets 9 gold stars, and then tries to count them towards the HSC or the end of school certificate and university admission. It is irrelevant to the problem.
Okay, well, give me your pop.
I felt back in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, that we had a climate emergency. Today we have a serious climate emergency, not only in this country, but globally. We've been given the numbers, we're looking down the gun barrel of 3 to 4 degree warming by 2050.
Yes, sure, absolutely.
It is a staggering failure in government and in governance. It's a tremendous breach of responsibility of our governing bodies,
No problem.
and it's intergenerational theft. We're kicking the problem down the road to our children and our grandchildren. And I find it difficult to see how a Pentecostal Christian thinks
Apparently you
that's a
need
great
to shove
idea.
yourself in the front to get these guys' attention. And I'm just not a very forward person.
I am the only Muslim.
I suspect his God might be disappointed that this man is doing everything he can to destroy the planet that God claims to have created. I find this a staggering situation. What we need the government to do today, if you want to pay true respect to those who've suffered in the bushfires and the droughts, I think we should commit in a bipartisan way to say a 3-decade strategy, a transition strategy to get to net zero emissions by 2050. Now they run the bullshit right. It's going to cost, it's going to be disruptive, it's going to be painful. It burns all the opportunities that would otherwise be there in the transition. We need to make the transition in electricity and power, in transport, in agriculture, in industrial processes, in building. Every sector of the Australian community, we all got a role to play, but we need government to give us the framework, the transition framework, for the next 3 decades to achieve what has to be done, and to motivate us accordingly. And I think that is the most effective way.
So I just wanted to find out, like obviously, meeting towards renewables and things, is there somewhere, does someone have a plan for where we're going to put them? Because just thinking, like, you've got enough area all mapped out, because you rejected a wind farm in your area, and that just doesn't sort of make sense. I mean, every solar one was going to be...
wasn't in that area.
Wasn't it?
No, it wasn't.
What was the one that you rejected?
The wind farm is in Robbins Island.
It's on the opposite side of Tasmania.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, well, no, that's all right. Just, that's just the popular story. So is there... Where does he plan to put them all? The wind farms and solar farms and things.
I just wanted to pull you up. Robbins Island, if you check it out.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's just going off, the basics of the MSM reports. So, but I'm just asking, where are you planning on putting them all? Because it's very space intensive. It always has an ecological footprint.
There's a pretty wide expanse of land in Australia to be able to put solar farms.
I know, but if you're going to reject it in one spot, like every spot has ecological vulnerabilities. So
we can reject.
So no isn't really an answer.
It's an answer.
We're going to do a bit of a setup now.
So how do you decide?
We're heading for 2 users. Musical break.
There are places without ecological importance. Are you serious? Where has no ecological importance?
So we've had John Ward here closest to me, singer-songwriter, that sort of street music.
So if they're degraded, wouldn't you want to repair them, not just build over the top of them? I'm a private citizen. It's a public event. I'm asking questions. I want answers. Like, you want my support, you know, and I support you. So in other words, you don't know where?
I'm just not answering you right now, okay? You can contact me at the Bob Brown Foundation.
Bob Brown Foundation? No worries, I certainly will. And it's degraded and useless ecologically. Well, I can't. That's why I'm asking you.
Do something about yourself.
But you're running.
Are you hearing guitar?
So you told me you had the answers to where they were going. Yes. Oh, so basically you don't really care about giving people information?
Science, action, declare the climate emergency now. Try it.
There you go. They can't have no answers. Apparently there are ecologically unimportant areas they are going to put all these things on.
Science, action, declare the climate emergency. I can't hear you.
So I need to be bigger.
Science, action.
People would be less inclined to walk away.
Emergency now.
That's what happens when you're 5 foot next to nothing.
Action, declare the climate emergency now. Speak the truth, you leaders. There's no time left for lies. Admit that the climate's going off the scale before our planet dies. And I want to say truth, science, action, declare the climate emergency now. Truth, science, action, declare the climate emergency now. Listen to the scientists, they've spoken truth for years. While business lies, leaders and denial brings grief and tears. Let me hear now. Truth, science, action, declare the climate emergency now. Truth, science, action, declare the climate emergency now. Action for all life on earth, her water, air and soil. It's time to put an end to coal, an end to gas and oil. Let me hear you now. Truth, science, action, declare the climate emergency now. Truth, science, action, declare the climate emergency now.
I think we figured out they're full of shit.
Who can adapt to toxic smoke? Who can adapt to fire? Who can adapt to 50 degrees? Scotty, you're a damn fool liar. Let me hear you now. Truth, science, action, declare the climate emergency now.
Nice, accurate labelling.
Truth, science, action, declare the climate emergency now. Truth, science, action, declare the climate emergency now. Declare the climate emergency now. Yeah, declare the climate emergency now. Be louder. Declare the climate emergency now.
Oh, this is a bit better, isn't it? So I think that's actually really disrespectful to him to stand up there with Indigenous speakers and then to turn around and his representative to say that there are bits of country that have no value. Isn't that crazy? So, you know, us so-called denialists, racists and all the rest of it, think more about these things than they do. Oh, look, there's one of the rainbow flags. Who was asking about rainbows?
And now we've got the, and it's not his right here and now.
If I could spot that guy I was talking to about it before, I'd tell him no, he was right, I didn't get a proper answer.
From ANU, who is studying history. And let me introduce you to Grace Hill, University student for climate justice. And unfortunately, I'm now going to speak in a double negative. She's going to talk about, wait until it becomes a double negative, talking about the resistance, that's one negative, to climate inaction. Is that right? Okay, over here, calm down, this is your microphone.
Whatever. What does it say at the top of that page?
Yeah. No, I do know that.
To see so many people out here today. 2019 was a year of climate protest. It was a year where we saw millions of people all around the world answer the call of Greta Thunberg and take to the streets. And 2020 is going to be a continuation. We are committing to make 2020 a year of climate protest. Uni Students for Climate Justice, the group that I'm representing, called earlier this year and at the end of last year massive protests around the country in response to the government's criminal inaction on the bushfires, in response to their criminal inaction on climate change and their continuing facilitation of the fossil fuel companies in their quests for profits above human lives. And 100,000 people marched around the country this January demanding that Scott Morrison be sacked. I think this is a real ray of hope. I really agree with Uncle Bruce Shillingsworth, who was up here earlier, who said that there is not a hope coming from that building. There's no one in that building who's coming down here to save us. And seeing hundreds of thousands of people around the world, 100,000 people marching earlier in January, and the thousands that are here today, that's the ray of hope. That's how things will change. That is how we will stop the climate criminals. Scott Morrison should go. His position is untenable. He was hanging out in Hawaii while the country burned, while we here in Canberra and many in other cities across the eastern states were breathing in toxic smoke. We're experiencing a mass poisoning event. He was chilling on a beautiful beach somewhere. He should go. But more than that needs to happen. Scott Morrison is not alone in his criminality. Scott Morrison is representative of the whole system that has to go. A system in a time of climate and ecological emergency, and the actions of our actions impact the habitability of our planet today for our current, our future generations. Mic check.
Going flat. This probably won't last long, but I am still recording.
Mic check.
Holy shit.
Mic check. I solemnly swear that I am up to no good. Because mischief is our greatest weapon.
Why do I have to yell in the microphone?
In this climate. Ecological. And political. Emergency. Our planet is being killed.
Just so you know, the battery went flat. It probably won't
and
last
those
much
with
longer.
the power to
In those who did
actively work to its demise. I am so angry. And I am so filled with grief. But do not fear. This is an exciting time to be us.
This is an exciting time to be us.
We get to have been there. As the ones who stood for justice. Who refused to be obedient. Dying planet. They will teach of us in history. As the ones who stood for a safer world. We have the courage to rebel for